They were left to die, 3 German Shepherd puppies, barely old enough to walk, tied to a tree with a thin rope, abandoned under the scorching sun. No food, no water, no hope. People passed by, some looked, some shook their heads, but no one stopped, until a soldier, home from deployment, carrying invisible wounds, saw them. And what he did next changed everything. This story will restore your faith in second chances, in loyalty, and in the unbreakable bond between a warrior and the voiceless souls he chose to save. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. That helps us bring more inspiring stories like this one straight to your heart. Jake's heart pounded as he carefully held the 3 puppies. They felt so small in his big arms, like little bundles of fur and bones, lighter than he expected. The dark one, who'd tried to act tough earlier, now pressed his tiny face against Jake's shirt. The sandy brown pup let out a quiet sigh, like he'd been holding his breath forever. And the little girl with the moon-shaped patch, she finally stopped shaking and licked Jake's thumb with her rough pink tongue. "Okay, little soldiers," Jake whispered, adjusting his grip so he wouldn't drop them. He could feel their rapid heartbeats against his chest. "Mission 1. Get you home." As he walked back to his truck, the puppies snuggled closer. The dark one kept looking up at Jake with those serious amber eyes, like he was trying to decide if this human could really be trusted. The afternoon sun beat down on them, but now at least the pups had shade, Jake's own shadow covering them as he walked. When he reached his beat-up pickup truck, Jake had a problem. He needed both hands to drive, but didn't want to put the puppies down. After a second, he shrugged out of his army jacket and made a nest of it on the passenger seat. "All right, squad," he said gently, placing them in the makeshift bed. "New orders, nap time." To his surprise, all 3 puppies immediately curled together in the jacket, their little bodies molding into one warm pile. The dark one gave a big yawn that showed all his tiny teeth, then rested his chin on his sister's back. Jake swallowed hard. 8 years in the military had taught him to control his emotions, but something about these 3 survivors got to him. He touched each small head lightly with one finger, a silent promise. "Let's go home," he said, turning the key in the ignition. In the seat beside him, 3 tails thumped weakly against the fabric. It wasn't much, but it was enough. For now. Jake never meant to keep the puppies. He wasn't really a dog guy. Back in the army, he'd seen working dogs, tough, disciplined animals, but he'd never had a pet of his own. But something changed when he looked at these 3. The big one with the dark fur stared right into Jake's eyes like he could see every bad memory Jake carried. The little brown one wagged his tail even though he was skin and bones. And the smallest, the one with the white mark on her chest, looked at Jake like he was her whole world. He couldn't just leave them. So he gave them names. First, Shadow. The dark one. Smart. Watchful. Like a little soldier already. Second, Dusty. The brown pup. Clumsy, always falling over his own feet but never stopped trying to play. Third, Luna. The tiny girl. Shy at first, hiding behind furniture, but when she trusted you, she'd curl up in your lap like she belonged there. At first, they were scared of everything. Luna spent most of her time under the couch, peeking out with big, nervous eyes. Dusty whined all night, missing his mom. And Shadow? He never let Jake out of his sight. Every time Jake moved, Shadow was watching, like he expected Jake to disappear. But Jake didn't leave. He fed them, even when they made a mess. He stayed up late when Luna cried, holding her until she fell asleep. He taught them simple commands: sit, stay, come, and laughed when Dusty got too excited and face-planted in the grass. Slowly, something amazing happened. Luna stopped hiding. Dusty slept through the night. And Shadow? He still watched Jake, but now his tail wagged when Jake walked into the room. They trusted him, and for the first time in years, Jake felt like he had something worth fighting for. Then, the man showed up. Jake was playing fetch with the pups in the front yard when he heard tires crunching on gravel. A sleek black car, way too fancy for this dirt road neighborhood, pulled up his driveway. The door opened, and out stepped a man in an expensive suit, his shoes so polished they gleamed in the sunlight. The man introduced himself as Victor Hale from Elite K-9 Defense. "We train military and police dogs," he explained, his voice smooth like a salesman's. Then he dropped the bomb. Those German shepherds went to Shadow's collar. The pup stood rigid beside him, sensing trouble. "What do you mean they belong to you?" Jake asked, his voice tight. Hale kept that fake, polite smile. "They failed our training program. Didn't pass the tests. Frankly, they're defective." He said it like he was talking about broken equipment, not living creatures. Jake looked down at Shadow, the same dog who learned stay in one afternoon, who protected his siblings, who somehow knew when Jake was having nightmares and would lick his face until he woke up. This pup, defective. "That's bull," Jake said bluntly. His grip on Shadow's collar tightened. "These dogs are fine. More than fine." Hale's smile finally slipped. His eyes turned cold. "You're not listening, Sergeant. These animals were supposed to be disposed of. They weren't meant to live." He said it so calmly it made Jake's blood run cold. "Get off my property," Jake growled. Every muscle in his body was tense. Behind him, he could hear Dusty and Luna whining nervously by the porch. Hale sighed like Jake was being unreasonable. He reached into his jacket pocket, and for one terrifying second Jake thought he might pull out a gun. But it was just a business card. "When you change your mind," Hale said, dropping it in the dirt, "we'll be back for what's ours." As the black car disappeared down the road, Shadow let out a low growl. Jake knelt beside him. "Don't worry, buddy," he whispered, scratching behind the dog's ears. "No one's taking you anywhere." But as he looked at the business card lying in the dust, Jake knew this wasn't over. These people didn't just want the dogs back. They wanted them gone for good. The night, they came back. Jake lay awake in the dark, listening. He knew they would come. Men like Hale didn't give up. They just waited for the right moment. Then, a sound outside. A boot scraping gravel. A whisper. Jake sat up. Shadow was already at the window, ears pricked, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Dusty and Luna stirred from their bed in the corner, sensing the danger. Jake grabbed his shotgun and moved silently to the door. He didn't turn on the lights. He didn't need to. Outside, shadows moved in the moonlight. 3 men. Not in suits this time. Dressed in black, carrying nets and tranquilizer guns. They thought they were being quiet. They were wrong. Shadow struck first. The pup was just a blur of black fur, launching himself at the closest man with a snarl that didn't sound like a puppy at all. The man yelped, stumbling back as Shadow's teeth clamped onto his sleeve. Dusty and Luna erupted into a frenzy of barking, their high-pitched voices cutting through the night like an alarm. Jake stepped onto the porch, shotgun raised. The intruders froze. One of them fumbled with his tranq gun, but Jake leveled the shotgun at him. "Don't," he said, voice cold. The leader, a big guy with a scar down his cheek, glared. "We're just here for the dogs, Sergeant. Don't make this messy." Jake's finger tightened on the trigger. "You touch them, and I'll show you messy." For a long second, no one moved. Then Shadow let out another deep, warning growl. Dusty and Luna's barks turned furious. The men exchanged glances. They weren't paid enough for this. Scarface backed up first. "This isn't over," he muttered. "Yeah," Jake said. "It is." The men disappeared into the night. Jake lowered the shotgun, breathing hard. Shadow trotted back to his side, tail stiff, still watching the darkness. Dusty and Luna pressed against Jake's legs, running a hand over each of them. Trembling. "Good job, team," he whispered. But as he looked out at the empty road, he knew one thing for sure. They wouldn't stop coming. And next time, they might not be so easy to scare off. Jake couldn't stop thinking about what Hale had said. Defective. Unstable. The words didn't match the smart, loyal pups sleeping at his feet. So he started digging. Late at night, with Shadow curled beside his laptop, Jake searched military dog records. What he found made his blood boil. The puppy's father was a hero, a military K-9 named E-Titan, who had saved an entire unit in Afghanistan, but instead of retiring honorably, Titan had been put down. The report said, behavioral issues, but the dates didn't add up. Titan was killed just days before he was supposed to come home. Then Jake found more. Other failed dogs, other accidents, all from elite K-9 defense. This wasn't about bad dogs, it was about hiding the truth. The program didn't want dogs who hesitated before biting, protected innocent people without orders, were too smart to follow bad commands. Dogs like Titan. Dogs like Shadow, Dusty, and Luna. Jake looked at the 3 sleeping pups. They weren't rejects. They were proof. And that made them dangerous. Elite K-9 defense wasn't training perfect soldiers. They were killing the ones who wouldn't obey. Jake knew he couldn't fight this battle alone. He packed up all his evidence, the documents, the records, even the security footage of the men trying to steal the pups at night, and brought it to the police. The truth came out fast after that. Elite K-9 defense got shut down. Connor Briggs, the breeder who left the puppies to die, got arrested, and all their other rejected dogs got a second chance. As for Jake's 3 special pups, Dusty went to live with a 7-year-old boy named Ethan who didn't talk much. But when Dusty came home with him, something amazing happened. Ethan laughed for the first time in years when Dusty tripped over his own big paws. Now they're always together. The boy who didn't speak and the dog who taught him how. Luna found her forever home with Mrs. Rodriguez, a war widow who'd been lonely since her husband passed. At first, Luna was shy, just like her new owner. But slowly, they both came out of their shells. Now you'll always see them walking together in the mornings. The woman who lost her soldier, and the dog who became her new reason to smile. And Shadow? He stayed right where he belonged, with Jake. Together, they started training other rescue dogs to help veterans like Jake who came home with invisible wounds. Shadow turned out to be the smartest dog Jake had ever known. He could sense when someone was having nightmares before they even woke up. At night, when the bad memories came, Shadow would rest his heavy head on Jake's lap as if to say, "I'm here. You're safe now." The world had called them rejects, but really they were heroes, because sometimes the creatures everyone gives up on turn out to be the ones who save us all along. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Every click helps us share more tales of courage, redemption, and the unbreakable bonds that change lives. And remember, no soul is ever truly broken, just waiting for the right person to believe in them.